Good morning. It is 9:47 a.m. on the 5th of October. It's a Monday morning here in New Zealand. My name is Arran Hunt, I'm a partner here at Stace Hammond, and I head up the Migration Partners team. Now, I actually recorded this video about an hour ago. I had to go to an appointment, I came back, and of course immigration within an hour has changed things. So I thought, well, I could do a little update, or I could just do the video again. So we're going to go with the video again. The reason being is that in the video I mentioned that we hadn't yet seen a new form. We were thinking there's going to be a new form coming through, and of course the new form has now come through, which is fantastic. It's good that it hasn't been delayed. So I'm going to go through my little notes here. I'll make some mentions of the new form that we've just seen as I look at it. And hopefully this provides you with some more information. Now, as always, this is not legal advice. It is merely our sort of reviewing of the changes from Immigration New Zealand. If you want legal advice, please get in contact with us, become a client, and we can provide you that legal advice. Lots of changes to discuss. We are going to do a video tomorrow regarding the essential skill visa application changes, which is quite significant for a number of you. Also changes to work to residence, which came through with the changes we're going to discuss now. However, we want to focus today on that visas for partners, New Zealand citizens and residents. So that's what today's video is going to be about. This came through on late Friday, so I'm sorry it took a few days to come through to you. I had plans with my partner on the weekend, and I tried to, as I'm sure you understand, the need to be there for your partner. I'm going to try and get help you guys get in the same situation. Now the changes are covered under the INZ Operational Manual Amendment Circular 2020-44. These are things they put out to notify lawyers that there are changes being made to the operational manual. These are available online, but this one here in particular, I checked this morning, it wasn't available yet. I will just check while we're doing this video to make sure. And so we're going to go through what those changes are in this discussion. I'm going to go, there are references of course when I say things, no, it is not available yet, just had a look now. Now I'm going to reference the operational manual and the changes these make. The operational manual, of course, is what Immigration New Zealand officers look at. That is their rules they are looking to apply, and they'll often quote it when they come back to you with in letters if they have any issues or questions. So if you hear me refer to a letter followed by a number such as H6.5, that's a reference to the operational manual. So there's a section H, subsection 6, and a subsection 0.5. You'll have that's how it all works. First, we're going to sort of cover what Immigration New Zealand has been proposing and they've now put in place. I'm still trying to load up where this form is going to be. Let's just do it. Let's look down here. The idea is that applicants who are in partnerships with New Zealand citizens and residents who are coming from Visa-Waiver countries, this provides them with a way to get into New Zealand. Now, I'm going to actually go through what the official word of immigration is in a moment. But the purpose is to provide a way for them to come to the country, to let them be with their loved ones. Now, once you make the application, you do an application on the website. It's a one-page application. They then go through that. They come back with if they approve it, with an invitation to apply, an ITA. That lets you then go to the actual application through the typical Immigration New Zealand website. Now, looking at, just going through my notes, I'm jumping around a little bit because the changes have been made. So once it's granted, you apply through the usual process. Now, processing times previously for the first part, getting the ITA was taking sort of 2 to 4 days. We expect it will take a little bit longer with the additional of the partners section. So, partner of New Zealand citizen. Just going through whether there's anything being added to this form. Not that I can see here, but I've seen some screenshots online that there has been changes made. Okay. Once the ITA has been granted, you fill out the online application for a visitor visa, and that is to come into the country. Those take about a week previously. We've handled them for people previously. However, again, this is a new process. There'll be a lot of applications on day 1, 2 and 3. It's going to swamp Immigration New Zealand to some degree, and it will take a little bit longer, I think. It's also it's a new process. They're going to become accustomed with how it's going to operate. So Immigration New Zealand will get faster at it, but at first the staff there will be I think taking a cautious approach, make sure they don't make any mistakes with a new process, and I think you can understand that. Once the visa has been granted, the visa holder will have 6 months to travel to New Zealand and sort of make use of the visa. The visa starts when they arrive in the country, and it lasts 6 months within New Zealand. So during that 6-month period, you look at applying for another visa, probably a work visa under partnership. Those coming from Australia should receive a residence visa on arrival. Remember though that residence visa only lasts as long as you're in the country. So if you do leave, you'll need to process the process again. So if there is a possibility of leaving the country, give us a call. We'll see if we can find a way for you to retain that right to re-enter without going through this process again. Also remember, just on a side note, that from today people coming to New Zealand have to pre-register for managed isolation, or quarantine as we call it. There is a grace period between now and November the 2nd. So on November the 3rd onwards, if you try and board a flight that arrives in New Zealand on November the 3rd or later, you haven't got that vet voucher from the MIQ system, you will not be allowed to board your flight. But from today till November the 2nd, it isn't a requirement, but it is encouraged, as it will make your process arriving in New Zealand faster, because they will know you're coming, they'll have you allocated to a facility already. Otherwise, what they've said is that you'll have to arrive in the country and join a queue at the airport. It could take some time to do. Of course, we don't know whether that's what the difference is going to be. It only starts today, but I would still recommend that people go up there and actually just register in advance. Now look at the actual rules being in the operational manual. So we haven't actually been through the new form yet. The form is appearing online. We can't see it yet. Others can see it. Not quite sure what's going on there. But we'll look at the changes to the operational manual which have been which are being made and have or should appear in the operational manual today. So H6 is the base area, being the COVID-19 support restricted temporary entry instructions, relationship-based visitor visa for Visa-Waiver partners of New Zealanders. That's the title. Now I'm going to read out the objective here. It's quite long, but just because it gets you an idea there as to what Immigration New Zealand are trying to get through from these changes. The objective of these instructions is to support the government's intent to reunite New Zealand citizens and residence visa holders with partners to whom the requirement to hold a visa permitting travel to New Zealand has been waived by Schedule 2 of, and a long bit of regulations name, referred to as Visa-Waiver partners in these instructions. These instructions support immigration system integrity by recognising only genuine partnerships and allowing Visa-Waiver partners of New Zealanders to apply for a relationship-based visitor visa to travel to New Zealand. Now, relationship-based we'll come back to, that's always going to be the important part. H6.5 covers that it is a two-step process, being the need to show interest to travel to New Zealand, to get that invitation to apply, and then applying for the visitor visa. There is a fee payable, not sure what the fee is yet until I get my system showing it. This fee does cover independent children, which we'll talk about later in the video, because that's another interesting little side point as well. Now, under H.65, for the immigration officer to invite a person to apply for a visitor visa, so going for that first step of the process, they have to be satisfied that the immigration provider does not indicate a health, character, or bona fide issue. That would prevent the granting of a relationship-based visitor visa. Now, of course, health issues, character issues, I think they're obvious if there's boxes you fill out and you tick the form, do you have these health issues, do you have these character issues? If you tick a yes there, then it could create an issue and they may not grant you the invitation to apply. Bona fide is different, and bona fide is looking at your intention for coming to New Zealand. Now, if you put something in there, the reason to come to New Zealand isn't to be with your partner, it's for some other reason. Say you've got a new job offer here and your partner happens to be here, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to New Zealand for the job offer, not to be with my partner, then you're not really bona fide for the purpose of the visa, and that could be an issue. The immigration officer also needs to to look at whether the person included are likely to meet funds and sponsorship requirements. Now this is the reason why we thought a new form was coming, and of course it has come, as the current form doesn't really ask enough questions to sort of ascertain whether the person can have sponsorship or can have funds to meet their needs. And of course they must be eligible for a visa waiver. So if they come from a country or have a citizenship in a country where a visa waiver is given on arrival typically. Now, if the expression of interest includes one or more dependent children, 19 years of age or younger, the immigration officer must have an evident reason to not doubt that the relationship between the person and the children is correct. So dependent children are dependent on the applicant and not the New Zealanders. There was an issue with previous applications under COVID-19 where they were looking at the dependent child being the dependent of the New Zealander, not of the parent who was the partner. And the instructions then were looking to grant a visa to the partner, but not to the partner's children unless they were actually dependent of the New Zealanders. So that was a bit of an issue with the way it was worded. This words it better, and we'll mention the exact wording in a second. Finally, and probably the most concerning, is that the immigration officer has to be satisfied at that first stage, based on the information that you provide, that the person meets the requirements to be granted a relationship-based visitor visa. Now, typically, most people won't meet that requirement unless they're separated purely by border closures. As covered in previous videos, relationship-based visas typically require partners to be living together in a genuine and stable relationship. So, being apart due to border closures, that living together is being prevented by someone it's outside your control. That's sort of permitted. But if someone left the country, say, to work abroad before the border closed, then you weren't really living together in a genuine stable relationship. You were no longer living together. So that's typically how they do relationship-based visas. However, here they mention H6.10, so INZ has redefined that term for this visa type. So this requirements for relationship and for partnership have been redefined for this visa, and we will come to the exact wording in a moment. So H6.10 provides what needs to be provided for the relationship-based visitor visa once the ITA has been provided. So it needs to be submitted within 1 month of getting the ITA. So if you get that ITA through, get the application submitted within a month, don't think it'll be an issue. I think you will be keen to get this process going. It must be made online through the typical system. There may be a fee. And then to quote H610D3, the documentation and evidence requested in the invitation to apply, including evidence of the applicant's relationship to the New Zealand citizen and resident. So that's also what they'll be looking at. Now, how this is looked at is in H615, which states the requirements for a visa to be granted. Now, most of the H615 goes through just health requirements, character requirements, the usual things that they'll look for. But H615A5 is probably the one to note, is that the applicants needs to have met the relationship requirements by having lived together with a New Zealand resident or citizen, and currently being in a genuine stable relationship. So notice that you have the word having and then being. So having lived together in the past, but currently being in a genuine stable relationship. So the typical need to be living at the time of application with the partner is no longer required for this visa type. It's a requirement that you have had previously lived together. So this won't be good news for those who are looking for, who are looking at culturally arranged marriage visas, or those who, for cultural or religious reasons, haven't lived with their partner. Unfortunately, Immigration New Zealand has this strict view that people in partnerships live together. There are other options, typically for those people, but right now, not so much. Now, there is no need for an expected sort of minimum requirement time to live together. How they're going to apply this. Typically, apart from residence visas where it requires at least 1 year together, all other partnership visas have never had a time limit required, despite people saying this whole ridiculous 3 months for a work visa and a partnership thing. It just doesn't exist. There is no time limit requirement. There is no need to expect a maximum permitted stay or to show onward travel. So Immigration New Zealand knows the reason you're coming to New Zealand is to be with your partner. So they're not expecting you to say, I'm coming for so many months, or here's my ticket to leave the country. They know you're coming here to be with your partner, most likely permanent move, and they understand that. So they actually explicitly stated that in there, that they're not expecting these bits of evidence. Now, H615.1.1 covers the evidence of a relationship, how you show you're in a relationship. They provided some ideas, but as always, this is not a hard list, so anything can be provided. So there might be things not on this list that are provided, and we often say to our clients, actually, here's about 10 things you might look at providing, because their lists are usually quite limited. However, these are things that if you can provide them, you probably should, as it's what they have listed as examples, especially with this being a new visa. So first they've got a description of the partnership, including details of any previous shared living relationships, arrangements. So generally we would say to clients, write a letter explaining how you met, your time together, how your relationship developed, when you lived together, all those sorts of things, and that covers that. Documentation that demonstrates your partnerships, which could include a marriage certificate or joint bank account. Travel movements with your partner, so the applicant and the partner, if they've travelled together, they've gone on holidays or they've been around the world together or even in and out of New Zealand, that also shows it. And evidence that the New Zealand partner supports the applicant's request to travel to New Zealand. Now this is typically done by a form that they'll be required to fill out when they're doing the visitor visa application. There'll be a form there for the partner to fill out and sign to confirm they do support the application. There's also a reference there to E4535C, which is a list of other things which an applicant can show as evidence. Again, that's not a strict list, but it is a good starting point to sort of go through which of these things can I provide. Now, next thing, of course, is that living together. So evidence that you live together can, again, be anything, but they have provided a few examples. So they provide a joint ownership of property, joint tenancy agreement or a rent book or rental receipts, correspondence including postmark envelopes addressed to the principal applicant and the partner at the same address. Now, on the first two things, if you haven't got your both names or an agreement with some property together, you can get letters from former flatmates, letters from former landlords to say yes, they were living at this address at these times. Anything else you can find that can sort of show that you were at that address together. As to correspondence, of course, posted mail isn't so common these days, but anything at all that you could have that shows your addresses. Ideally they want stuff that's been posted, but even if it's emailed invoices, provide those anyway, print to PDF and provide those as well, just to show that you do both have, you've both been using that same address at some point. And that is actually about it. Now we will provide, of course, a link to the amendment circular changes, which is of course the changes will appear within the immigration manual, operational manual under H6, which is what the area they put in the COVID-19 stuff. We'll also provide a link to the amendment circular when it's available. We'll add it to the description, which basically just shows only the changes and it highlights in yellow what has been changed. I'll come back tomorrow with a video covering the work to residence visa changes and the essential skills visa changes, which are much more substantial, especially for those at the lower end of the skill level. We wanted to try and focus today just on the partnerships with New Zealanders and for those Visa-Waiver countries. As always, if this was a helpful video, please like the video. It really does sort of encourage YouTube to help us get the word out there. And if you subscribe, you'll be notified about future videos when we sort of let you know what's happening with immigration in New Zealand. Until then, kia kaha, stay strong, and hopefully we'll see those partners coming back into New Zealand quickly and safely.